Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. My today's editorial is about accountability. My today's editorial is about taking responsibility. You see, it's very difficult to be a leader. Very difficult to be a leader, whether he's a leader of a small company like mine, or whether he's a leader of a huge conglomerate, or whether he's a leader of a cricket team, or whether he's the responsibility and the pressure on the leader is very, very high. You know why it is high? It is high because his decision affects people. Now imagine a prime minister, say of our country. A decision that the Prime Minister takes affects 130 crore people of our country, 130 crore lives. Take the example of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa. Look at some of the decisions he took and look at where it brought that country to. Today, let's discuss whether our Prime Ministers, politically appointed heads, are they actually accountable? Is there a way they are held responsible for the decisions that they make? Let's discuss that. Let's get right into the show. Before the pandemic, in the Sri Lankan elections, Rajapaksa promised huge tax cuts. Huge tax cuts. Remember that editorial I spoke to you about freebie and welfare? The difference between freebie and welfare, and what happens if the freebie is overextended. Finally, it takes its toll on the country and its economy. And that's precisely what happened with Rajapaksa. Huge tax cuts. And what happened? Economy suffered. He was not able to pay to his foreign employees, especially because Sri Lanka is a huge tourism state, tourism-driven country. The bulk of their revenue comes from tourism. But they couldn't pay their foreign employees. So they were degraded by the rating agencies. And that had huge impact on the country. The fact that because of their policies, their foreign exchange dropped drastically. Their foreign exchange reserves dropped drastically. And the most important thing is this decision of banning chemical fertilizer. You see, certain decisions sounds very good. Chalo, no chemical fertilizer because it causes cancer and it causes diseases and all. So no chemical fertilizer. All this sounds good. But is that practical? Is that practical? That's the question one needs to ask. Nobody bothered to ask. Went by popular decisions, went by popular mandate, went and announced ban on chemical fertilizers and used bio-fertilizers. Bio-fertilizers say, can you feed the country? Can you feed the country? Is it possible? Did you have? Did you do any kind of a study? Did you do a reality check before you announced? Didn't. And here, the country. After yesterday, there's not a drop of oil in that country. World Bank, International Monetary Funds refused to pay them money. Even their good old friends, China, refused to pay them. India is now helping them. But how much can India help? Now, this is what happens. After all this decision, what was Rajapaksa trying to do? Rajapaksa was trying to flee the country. Luckily, their courts disallowed him. The court said, nothing doing, you can't leave the country. That is not because he took wrong decisions. That is because there was some violence that happened. His supporters did some violence in the state. That is why the court said it. No penalizing, no accountability for the decisions, for the wrong, disastrous decisions that man took and brought Sri Lanka to where it was. No problem for that. Achha, this is as far as Rajapaksa is concerned. Now let's come home. Let's talk about certain decisions our good Prime Minister took. Demonetization. 2016, demonetization. The amount of calamity that demonetization actually caused and resultant, nothing. No result. No benefit to the economy, no benefit to the country. Nobody speaks about it after that. The Prime Minister has never spoken about it after that. hundreds and thousands and lakhs of small dealers, small traders, small companies finished because of demonetization. The informal economy almost got squashed. So many people lost their lives. But is the Prime Minister held responsible for his decisions? He is back as Prime Minister in 2019. What happens to that decision that went wrong? The lockdown. Do you remember the lockdown? The haphazard way, one fine day, he spoke about lockdown. Aaj raat se koi bahar nahi jayega. No, nobody goes out from today. Acha, this lockdown was postponed because of Delhi elections. This lockdown was postponed because a man called Donald Trump came into India. For that, and 7 million people were waiting for him to receive him. For that, this lockdown was postponed. But this lockdown happened. The moment all that jazz happened, all those people went away, lockdown was declared. And haphazard. Nobody knew what to do. You know what happened? Migrant laborers. Hundreds of people lost their lives. Who is responsible? Are we holding anybody accountable? Is the government, is the Prime Minister accountable for the decision that he took? What happened? People died. He took his decisions, never spoke about it. Same is the case with this wheat. Wheat export ban. Just 1 month back, the Prime Minister said that he's going to have this wheat diplomacy. In fact, the Prime Minister, during his talks with US President Joe Biden last month, offered to supply India's food stock to the world if the World Trade Organization accords permission. He said, I am ready to offer my wheat to the world, yaar. And all of a sudden, next month, he said, hey, wheat nahi hai, humko idhar nahi hai. How can you take such a decision? How can the Prime Minister of India be so unaware of what is happening? How can he be so unaware of what is happening? This is what happened with fuel price also. Fuel price rose up. He said, no, that was because of oil bonds. If you knew that there were oil bonds, you said, the Prime Minister of this country said that, listen, aapke jeb mein paise hai ki nahi hai, fuel price kam hua ki nahi hua. He only said that. And then the price started skyrocketing much above what it was in UPA times. And what did he say? Okay, it's all because of, he didn't say, a lot of his ministers said, all because of oil bonds, which again, I have done a special editorial on that. Please see that in the description, the oil bond story, that you please see that in the description. But chalo, you even assume that it is because of oil bonds. When you make a claim that I'm going to get the prices down, didn't you see, didn't you read, didn't you do your research and see what happens to the oil bonds? How are you going to pay that oil bonds? Oil bonds was taken from 2010. So shouldn't you be knowing that when you are making a claim in 2014 that I will get the prices down? So the point is, somewhere down the line, my conclusion to this editorial is that a Prime Minister, a leader, no matter who that Prime Minister is, I am not talking about Narendra Modi, I am not talking about BJP, I am talking about any Prime Minister, any leader, including a leader of a company, including a leader of a corporate, including a leader of a cricket team, for crying out loud, should be held responsible for the decisions he takes, because he is sitting there in the position as the leader. You can't just take a decision and say, oops, mistake ho gaya. You can't, because the decision you take, you are forcing 130 crore people to abide by that decision. And that puts the responsibility on you to ensure that at least you are accountable. You are made accountable for the decisions that you make. That's the point I wanted to make tonight. Till I see you next time. And that will be tomorrow night at 10. Namaskar.